Most human beings have never seen a shark or barracuda, and never will. Yet these magnificent and sometimes menacing creatures infiltrate our night thoughts, unsettling our dreams. Sharks and barracudas. Our fears of the unknown come to focus on these flesh and blood creatures so perfectly knit together for consuming other animals. Few swimmers or divers ever enter the sea without some fleeting thought of what might lurk below. There's no denying that these oceanic predators have the equipment and at times the inclination to attack human beings. Yearly, about 100 shark attacks are reported from the waters of the world. Doubtless there are more we never hear about.
Shark attacks are triggered by motivation, the big four: feeding, fear, sex, and aggression. And sharks have all of these, as do all vertebrates. However, from an analysis of the wounds of shark attack victims, it's very clear that feeding plays a very small role in shark attacks. One might think, well, a human gets attacked because a shark wants to browse and get a nice, easy meal. But that's not the case. In 50 to 75% of all shark attacks, there's no removal of tissue. There's only a laceration or cut. And so it's clear that social factors like territoriality in some sense, or like the shark is protecting its resources, sort of like if you go onto a dog's territory, it'll bite you.
We're going to take the bait down, and the sharks are going to come in. Each one of you cameramen are going to have a safety diver. Okay. And we're going to have one of these spears. And when the sharks come in, we're going to make sure that we keep the sharks away from you by jabbing at them and pushing them away with these spears so you don't get bitten, because these are some very vicious sharks. I saw one of them swallow a 60-pound amberjack whole last time we were out here.
Sure that's a big enough spear?
Well, I'm going to be behind you, so I'm not that concerned about it.
Oh, thanks a lot.
Any shark that gets to be 11, 12 feet long with 300 big teeth can be considered dangerous. Sharks have no sense of humor. You just got to look at their mouth to see that they're growling all the time. No sense of humor.
As far as a barracuda attacking someone, I don't know if there's ever been an unprovoked attack. Most of the time, anyone that's ever been bitten by a barracuda was either trying to feed them, or molest them, or poke them with a spear. And sometimes spearfishing, they do come very close and they're very fast, and that does scare people. They're lightning fast.
There's usually some case whereby either the person has tried to spear the barracuda or speared another fish, or they have their legs dangling over the side or their fingers dangling. And I would say one term describes barracuda attacks is mistaken identity. They always think you're something else, a small fish, and they go after you.
The barracuda danger probably is in feeding them, if you ever get to the situation where you do feed one, is the speed of them. And you have to be very careful, because all they want to do is come in and get the bait. And they're going to come in fast, and if you're careless and your hand is in the way, you can get bitten severely.
he had taken ballyhoo, put the ballyhoo in his mouth, and the tame barracuda would come up and pick it up. And I think barracuda are, on a fish scale, they're relatively smart. They're relatively safe. I wouldn't do it, but I know people who do it.
Believe it or not, this man knows this barracuda by name. For reasons sufficient to himself, he's dubbed it Psycho. Another of his acquaintances, one that poses serious problems for people who dive carelessly in its domain, is the green moray. Morays share the habitat, plus many of the rowdy predatory habits of barracudas and sharks. In this program, we'll travel with a small group of serious divers and underwater photographers who meet these spectacular fishes without depending on cages or other elaborate devices. They want to enter the world of the shark and barracuda, not set up a barrier to it. It's a world where danger can be the same as discovery. Nassau Harbor, the Bahamas. A 60-foot sport fisherman heads for blue water, the almost perfectly transparent seas well away from land. There, the crew of diver photographers intends to make contact with a pelagic or offshore predator known as the silky shark. This intensive expedition is headed by divers highly experienced with dangerous sharks. Jordan Klein Jr. and Jordan Klein Sr. have filmed countless real sharks, not rubber ones, for Hollywood. Stuart Cove owns a dive guide business, Nassau Undersea Adventures. Arlene Klein is an actress who's worked in many underwater movies. Their destination is the tongue of the ocean, a trough more than a mile deep, which the U.S. Navy has staked out for submarine operations. The surface waters there are the home of the silky sharks.
The U.S. Navy has a buoy anchored out here in the middle of the tongue between Andros and Nassau in 6,000 foot of water. And it's formed an ecosystem with moss growing on the buoy and little shrimp and stuff living in the moss, and therefore we get smaller jacks living off the shrimp, and then the bigger fish eating the jacks. We get tuna out there, marlin, a lot of game fish, and an abundance of sharks, in which we're going to be diving and filming today. Right over here on the line, you can see where the X is where we're going. It's 12 miles off. Right where that X is. That's it right there. It scared me. I thought that might have been the Navy up there, because that's what they do. They closed off the earth. Yeah, that would be a real drag.
Tying up to the buoy takes some teamwork with a slender boat hook and the twin 12-cylinder diesels, like threading a needle with a lariat. Stewart and his assistant, Roscoe Knowles, have been here and performed this maneuver before. More important, both know the ropes on baiting the abundant sharks that lurk in the violent, predatory vicinity of the buoy. Both have worked with the Kleins on other underwater films, including Jaws 4 and Splash. The shark bait is a variety of small tuna and other fish carcasses suitably aged. Slicing it right is something of a folk art. Jordan Klein Sr. is an expert on diving equipment. He's the designer of one of the most popular air compressors used by divers. A bit more bait,
Pull it out a little first.
and the last check and loading of the camera gear. Together, the Kleins also design and market underwater camera housings. This one, enclosing a Betacam, is built of 3/8-inch high-tensile aircraft aluminum, the virtual equivalent of armor. In fact, the Kleins more than once have used their housings as shields against shark attack. And 0 hour arrives at last. The fish blood is a broadcast signal, a loud and clear odor to any shark in the neighborhood of the buoy. Within a few minutes, they begin to move in, at first unseen beneath the boat. If the silky shark were a creature of man's own making, it would carry a warning label. Like the fearsome tiger, bull, and Caribbean reef sharks, it belongs to the family Carcharinidae, also known by the spookier English name requiem sharks. The legendary shark sense of smell is one legend that's true. It's proven that some sharks respond to blood and meat components in concentrations as slight as 1 part per million of seawater. Feeling their way tenderly along the thread of scent, they find the source.
George, you ready? Yeah, you gonna just jump in with it?
No quantity of diving experience can quite erase the apprehension when you're about to plunge, cageless, into a pack of feeding sharks.
You guys are about ready, huh? Okay.
Shark bites shark. In these waters, silky sharks commonly reach lengths of 7 feet. Large silkies are definitely rated dangerous to man, and don't seem to care much for boats either. Starting the dive, no stranger to risk, is Stewart Cove. To the sharks, hungry, the smell of the vanished bait hangs in the water. If the stimulus is strong enough, they may bite anything visible around them. Jordan Klein Sr. collects his favorite camera housing, the same one he used when filming underwater scenes for the James Bond movie Thunderball. Arlene Klein, still in her 20s, already is a veteran diver. As an actress, she's appeared in Moon Over Miami and other features often working underwater. She doubled for Daryl Hannah in the movie Splash. Yet none of that quite prepared Arlene for this, the documentary, real-life drama of sharing the water with predatory creatures running on empty. To keep sharks near the cameras, the divers bring on more bait. Silky sharks derive their name from the smoothness of their skins, which sometimes have been marketed as leather. The tooth-like projections typical of shark skin are much smaller than usual in the silky. It's tempting, if intimidating, for Arlene to touch one of the sharks and find out for herself exactly how they feel. So you've touched one and you think, maybe these sharks aren't so scary. Then, just when you're working up more courage, that's when it happens. Instantly, respect is restored. Here's a trick only the most experienced, the undersea extroverted, will be trying today. The idea is to take hold of a shark's tail, roll the hapless animal over, and induce in it the strangely relaxed state called tonic immobility. Cooperation is not quite assured. To minimize danger, the shark must be turned over quickly. Tonic immobility is also known as animal hypnosis or death feigning. Inverted, the shark finds itself in a confused sensory condition. Its natural surroundings may seem unfamiliar. Its breathing becomes deep and rhythmic. Scientists studying sharks have found tonic immobility a valuable tool in laboratory work. Upright again, the shark goes on its way, unharmed.
Okay, take it away. Take it up fast so it don't bounce. Oh, we got a twist.
Soon, the natural order will be restored, whatever order may mean to the mind of a shark.
Okay.
The crew takes a moment to relive the dive.
That was great, wasn't it?
Then, they get set for the next day.
How do you like that big boy?
Yeah.
I caught him a couple times. Yeah, right in front of you. Now one had a hook in his mouth.
Yeah, Roscoe, what kind of bait do you use?
Well, I've got this special bloody tuna here. Save it a couple of nights, you know, so it's really stink. It smells good.
Yeah.
Something what it looks like. You want to try it? Right off the stern here. Got lots of good jacks, you know. I throw it out in there. Hopefully the sharks don't get it. Maybe we need a little more chum.
in the belly here?
The quarry in this handline angling, not sharks but small fish called jacks, will in turn serve as bait the following day, when the divers hope to film huge bull sharks.
There's a jack.
A shark tries to intercept the hooked jack. So now the silky shark, in these smaller editions attracted by the bits of chum, becomes a kind of spoiler. The jacks are much quicker than the sharks. Still, the hungry silkies manage to make off with some of Roscoe's rancid tuna chum and will try to beat the jacks to his baited hook.
Okay, this time, baby, let's go. Let's get a jack.
The jacks dart away with the chum, but a shark inhales the hooked piece. So Roscoe has a silky, but that's not the whole story. Even when your bait is stolen by a shark, it's still not safe from other sharks. As it happens, this miniature shark was impaled in the corner of its mouth, so only the hook made contact. The rows of sharp teeth couldn't touch the line and cut it. The object now is to keep all your digits while extracting the barb from the tough cartilaginous jaw. Along with the sharks, a school of dolphins has now collected near the boat. These are not the mammalian dolphin or porpoise. Instead, they're one of the fastest, most colorful and exciting game fish in the seas. Sport fishermen eagerly seek the dolphin, trying to catch it on light tackle. Roscoe outdoes them all, battling his dolphin without benefit of rod and reel. Any dolphin Roscoe is able to boat will be served up tonight in the ship's galley. The dolphin is a true ocean delicacy, and the carcasses, not quite picked clean, will bring in tomorrow's monster bull sharks, among the most dangerous creatures on Earth. Rainbow-hued coral reefs, like these in the Florida Keys, are the home of a consummate marine predator, the great barracuda. Although some adult barracudas range far out to sea, most prefer these sunlit tropical coral heads, cavernous and dense with smaller fish a cuda can eat. Graceful species like this gray angelfish occupy their own niche of the incomparable habitat. Skulking beneath the coral outcrop, a black grouper, bulky and deliberate, seems the biological opposite of the great barracuda. Like shards of a mirror, a school of grunts hangs above a branching head of coral. The predatory barracuda is the top consumer in this reef economy. The author of the principal monograph on the species, Dr. Donald P. De Silva of the University of Miami, explains how it flexes its body to strike its prey.
And it uses this in an S shape to flex itself and then takes advantage of this very large tail to go forward very fast. It gets a tremendous thrust for a short distance, and it can catch anything. There's almost nothing that can get away from it. But it's definitely called a lion-weight predator or ambush predator. Barracuda are much faster than sharks. Now, there are some exceptions, such as the great white shark, which can swim relatively fast, but I think as far as the size concerned, barracuda is one of the fastest fish in the sea. They'll eat anything they can get, and the barracuda has a special adaptation with its very sharp teeth. It can take rather large animals and bite them in half. They'll take a swordfish its length or a dolphin its length, a needlefish its length, and bite the tail off, and then come back and eat the rest of it. They seem to be very territorial, where one barracuda will stake out its property. The divers have seen this. They approach this territory. The barracuda reaches a point where it doesn't back off. Usually a barracuda will back off. But if you enter its territory, the barracuda stays there, and this is why people become scared of them, because the barracuda will come toward you. Usually they keep this magic distance. You get closer, they back up. They get closer, you back up. So there's this space, and they don't like to have it invaded.
Though much smaller than most sharks, the cuda does pose a serious danger to man. The trouble is not attack, but poisoning from eating a cuda. Neurotoxic symptoms, nausea, hair and tooth loss, any of these can happen if you eat one containing the poison. The cuda gets it by eating coral reef fishes, which have eaten tiny creatures called dinoflagellates.
Dinoflagellate poison is very, very toxic. The second most naturally important toxin known to mankind. This builds up in the food chain into the barracuda, and if you eat the barracuda, you get it. The larger the fish, the more chance of the barracuda having it, and it's cumulative in the body. There's no way to prevent it, there's no way to cook, there's no way to freeze it. It's still toxic, and it's very paralyzing to humans. The poison lasts up to 25 years in humans, and it's not worth it. So I would not eat a large barracuda.
The poisoning, usually called ciguatera, may also cause another problem. Anglers aware of the toxin may kill and dispose of cudas rather than release them alive.
There are many management plans for many species, but there is none for the barracuda. And I'd like to see the barracuda included in this to try to keep its numbers, because it's very important as part of the ecosystem. It gets rid of dead and diseased fish and keeps the balance of nature proper.
Rolling action!
The Kleins head for the Coral Reef Preserve in the waters off Key Largo, Florida. Jordan Jr. and Arlene planned the closest conceivable encounter with a barracuda. In another boat, running to meet them, is Captain Spencer Slate, who operates the Atlantis Dive Center on Key Largo. Slate does not so much drive his high-performance haul through the mangrove channels as fly it. Captain Slate dives so much, he's made a particular large barracuda his pet. In fact, he takes snacks to it. It's a skittish pet, temperamental, so he calls it Psycho. The Kleins drop anchor at the appointed place. Slate and his wife Amy are right on time.
Made it.
Let me go see if my boy's here.
Okay. Now, which one is this one? Is this one?
Psycho.
Psycho. Okay.
You'll see why if he's here.
Waiting below, in 25 feet of warm turquoise water, is the wreck of the city of Washington, now mostly a scatter of timbers and plates encrusted with marine life. Wrecks like the Washington are rooming houses for the small fish that barracudas like to dine on.
So, you gonna take us over there?
Yeah, if you just swim about 40 degrees over this way, we'll swim right up on the barracuda. He should be there.
Okay, great. You could just hand me my camera.
Great.
Ready to go. Great.
Okay.
This time, the dive crew is small. Just Klein and Captain Slate. The subject to be filmed is one man, one fish. More intimate than hordes of feeding sharks. The Washington rests and imperceptibly rusts in the Key Largo National Marine Sanctuary. In this underwater preserve, the fish are protected from spearfishing and the coral from collectors. In this relatively shallow water, Captain Slate prefers a simple mask and snorkel to the cumbersome scuba equipment a cameraman must wear. And now, here's Psycho. Captain Slate knows him, but does he know Slate? Would he bite the hand that feeds him? Slate takes down a tidbit, a small fish called a ballyhoo. He'll offer it to Psycho between his teeth and hope the cuda's aim isn't off. But Psycho veers off. He's wary, not warming yet to the occasion. Again, the cuda skims past. Spooky. A school of yellowtails cleans up. Still, Psycho declines to come close and take the ballyhoo from Slate's teeth. So Slate extends a hand, with success.
The reason I feed them, I've dove the same reefs years and years, and these fish become part of your family out here. And I started watching Stephen Clem feed them years ago when I first came down the Keys, and I saw that if you were careful, these animals are just as tame as any domestic animal. You just have to know how to do it. And I started doing that. However, I don't advise anyone to do that because they are dangerous animals, just like feeding a wild animal on land can be, and you have to be real careful doing it or you can get hurt.
Another attempt with the incisors, and the Barracuda finally buys it. He snips the ballyhoo neatly in two, and a yellowtail snatches up the scrap. One more for good measure. This might be a good way to open up the sinuses. On this same shipwreck, Captain Slate has another hazardous pet, a snaggle-toothed fish called the green moray.
Sometimes when you're feeding the moray eels, you're handling them and you have your hands around their mouth. They actually let you hold them for a minute or two, and they will snip your fingers if you have the smell of ballyhoo on it because they're nearsighted. They don't see well, and they smell the fish in your hand, and they will bite your fingers, so you have to be very careful.
Unlike most sharks, barracudas feed primarily by sight. They don't seem to react to blood in the water. Instead, as Psycho makes clear, they go for a sudden erratic movement, a scaly flash. The barracuda is a reef-dwelling raptor, a fish with the eyes and speed of an eagle. Jordan Klein Jr. has become one of the most accomplished underwater filmmakers in the country. He's learned a great deal of camera technique from his father, who shot these scenes we're now watching. They originated on motion picture film, rather than the videotape used in the world of sharks and barracuda. Film has a gentler look, with the ability to reproduce more shades of color and contrast than video, and it is still Jordan's favorite medium, though video has taken over much of the industry today. Filming sharks is nothing new to either of the Kleins, and especially not to Jordan Sr. He's been doing it since the early 1960s, long before anyone in Hollywood ever dreamed of constructing a shark of rubber. Jordan accepted many risks in filming real sharks, since it wasn't really known how the various species of sharks would react to people close by, not surrounded by a cage.
Let's load this thing.
Everyone in the Klein family seems to have developed, or been born with, an instinct for filming beneath the seas. It's a pursuit with fewer rules than regular cinematography, and so you need to rely more on your native ability.
Oh yes, I think we started the shark scenes, the shark filming business in Thunderball. And Rico directed that. And we caught at that time the largest, I think 14.5-foot long tiger shark that was used in the picture under the bomber. We cheat a little bit. We get them good and tired. We tie them to a rock or a coral head, and they have to be moving to move water through their gills to take the oxygen out of the water to live. So we're in effect sort of not suffocating them, but we're lowering their intake of oxygen, which makes them lethargic, and they'll just sort of lay on the bottom. But once you pick them up and move with them, The water now starts flowing through their gills again. They start getting the oxygen back, and then you got a freight train in your hands. Camera housing is a fairly substantial piece of metal, and if they decide to take a bite on it, they'll spit it out promptly. I never realized just how one feels in the water without something in front of them until I happened to get in the water with sharks swimming around. And then I realized that the people that do get in the water without something such as a camera housing are a lot more brave than I am.
Jordan Klein Sr. designed this operating submarine. Only one of many underwater sleds, scooters, bombs, and other devices that his inventive mind has produced over the years. For his work on the film Thunderball, in fact, he won an Academy Award. And the category was special effects.
Most directors don't realize that the camera is omnidirectional. It could be used to make shots that would cost a fortune to do topside. The camera can move in any direction, up, down, back, forward, pan, whatever, and that's just a simple shot for the operator. It doesn't require the machinery. It doesn't take the time to set it up. The shots that can be had are infinite. Therefore, it's only subject to the imagination of the camera operator.
Then I came to this small inlet. There I found that I had a decision to make, one that would affect my life from that day on.
Hollywood knows a symbol when it sees one, and it knows that animals, like people, divide naturally into good guys and bad. For decades now, it has classified sharks in the latter category. To Hollywood, there's no such thing as a neutral shark. Sharks are evil itself, outfitted with fins. In the movies, a shark is a mindless eating machine, lusting constantly after human flesh. The sober and scientific view of these remarkable animals is different by far. Putting things into perspective is one of the world's most respected authorities on sharks, Dr. Sam Gruber of the University of Miami.
If you take the vertebrate animals, which are the higher animals, like the mammals, the reptiles, birds, and fishes, and so on, you can divide vertebrates into two groups based on their brain size. Mammals and birds fit into one group, and they're way up there with large brains, and reptiles, frogs, fishes are way down there with little brains. And incredibly, the sharks fit with the mammals and birds. They have very, very large brains for their size. There are 300 species of sharks, each having a slightly different role or a slightly different niche. There are giant sharks, which are plankton feeders. There are great predatory sharks like the great white, which feeds on marine mammals. There are sharks like the bull shark that feeds on other sharks. But generally, the kind of animal we think of a shark has the same role in the sea as, let's say, a lion has in the Serengeti Plain. Top predator.
At sunrise, the Klein set out from a harbor in the Bahamas, headed for a dive location which Stewart Cove simply calls the Wall, a drop from a sun-splashed coral reef to a depth of 6,000 feet. Today, the quarry is one of the largest and most dangerous of the requiem sharks. The Kleins, Jordan Jr. and Sr., have been eager to visit this spot since the day Stewart first told them about it. The sharks are bull sharks, bigger than silkies, and elsewhere they've made many fatal attacks on man. Stewart, who owns Nassau Undersea Adventures, has worked out a way of baiting them along the wall, using a tough mesh bag tied to a heavy rope.
But where we're diving today will be what, about 40, 45?
And then it goes straight out to the tongue of the ocean. Approximately 6,000 feet to the tongue of the ocean.
Really?
And we'll draw the sharks out of the depths with some the carcasses we had from the Dorado we caught yesterday.
What's the deepest you've been down the wall there looking for sharks?
About 130 feet.
130?
No, we can't say any deeper than that, can we?
Well,
We're getting in trouble. Yeah, really. Patio pull my license.
I've been 250 feet. How close do the sharks get to us here?
The sharks will come right up to us. They get kind of excited. You're going to probably be beating them off with your camera. And these are some very big, aggressive sharks. Not like the little silkies we were dealing with yesterday.
Right.
Sharks can get up to 10 feet.
You don't touch them.
No, you won't touch me.
Again, one time.
Yeah, one time. One time you make me breakfast.
Bull sharks differ from silkies in several ways, but most importantly, the silky shark is a pelagic shark. It means that it never comes into shallow water, whereas the bull shark is just the opposite. It's a shallow water inshore shark, continental shelf animal that even goes up into fresh water. The silky shark is adapted for feeding on small to medium-sized fishes. The bull shark is adapted for feeding on large fishes and other sharks, especially stingrays. I consider them dangerous because they do feed on other large prey, unlike most other sharks, which feed on small fishes.
Each one of you cameramen are going to have a safety diver.
Okay.
And we're going to have one of these spears. And when the sharks
The
come
fragile-looking spear is the only protection for the crew. Nearly as important as the spear is the bait bag and the odorous job of loading it with a dolphin Roscoe caught the day before.
Oh, they smell bad.
After a day and night in the tropical heat, the dolphin carcasses are in prime condition to attract the big sharks. The bag, tied to the coral reef with a stout line, is intended to keep the sharks from instantly swallowing the entire supply of bait.
This doesn't do it.
Okay. You want to put it all in?
Yeah, let's get that.
That's up, yeah, because like that thing.
This tuna head should work real well.
Two species of sharks in these Bahamian waters look almost identical, the bull and the Caribbean reef shark. Except to the expert shark biologist, they're practically impossible to tell apart. The first shark, easily an 8-footer, moves ominously close to the crew on its way toward the bait. With tremendous power, a massive shark tears away part of the tough synthetic bag. The moment comes when things might go bad. A shark swerves toward the divers, but a jab with a spear bumps it away.
In Western civilization, we think of sharks as the embodiment of evil. We talk about loan sharks and pool sharks, and we call lawyers sharks and things like that. I mean, this is ignoring the biological facts of sharks as being one of the oldest, most successful, most well-adapted and amazing, beautiful creatures that there are. Now, admittedly, they do attack and kill humans rarely, but frankly, we love elephants, and elephants kill more humans every year than sharks do, and so there must be something deeper, something psychological about this.
I think that the biggest problem with barracuda is the psychological effect. The person looks behind them and there's a large barracuda following him. The person, if he's a diver, if he's a scuba diver, may do something foolish. For example, forget to exhale when he's coming up, or to try to swim too fast, or to try to dive deep, or try to get out of the water too fast. And you make a psychological error which may take your own life. I think this is the real problem with the barracuda. It scares people. And there's really no reason to be scared.
I would like to replace the myth and the mythology with some of the facts where the general public can appreciate the role of sharks and how really fabulous they are as creatures, how old and successful, and how they represent a line of animals that are unique on the planet.
In the last few years, more has been learned about sharks and barracudas than in all the history of biology before that. Yet we grow impatient with the plain statistics and yearn for the poetry of the ocean predator's life. The passionate diver wants simply to be there. To him or her, these sunken seascapes are the most exotic territory left on Earth. And the native inhabitants, the sharks and barracudas, are forever calling him back.